I'm Kirsty. I work for the Behaviours Autistic Trust in Bromley, and we're affiliated to MCCH. Also, hopefully next week, going to finish being a TISARD student. Hopefully, dissertation goes in. And yeah, the area of study I seem to gravitate towards is a bit more interesting than research methods. Just bearing in mind the first presentation and the sensitive nature of the way we talk about things and labels that get applied. Where I work, service user and supported individual are kind of interchangeable. The guys I support all have different preferences, so I will jump between the two, and there's no offence meant, it's just that's where I'm coming from. I was sitting as you were saying that going, oh God, I get this wrong. And now that I know it's being filmed, I'll moderate my swearing as well. So. Okay, so this was my favourite quote project, and it really rung true. People were like, talk about their line managers, and yeah, but that's who I'd go to for advice. And they go, but I don't think he knows anything either. So it just seemed like a bit of a topic that people aren't particularly comfortable talking about. So, to start with, why is it a worthy topic to study at all? Do you have any thoughts? Why would it be of interest to start talking about sexuality and sexually challenging behaviours?
Because people think it's a taboo and they get really embarrassed about talking about it, especially with people who have a learning disability, because it's kind of, it's just a natural thing for everybody, but people kind of get all embarrassed if it's people with a learning disability and, oh no, we can't talk about that, oh no.
It's just, it's kind of off.
It's a taboo.
We don't talk about that because, you know, everybody with a learning disability must be asexual or can't be sexually active. That can't, especially in supported living and residential care, which is my background, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't at all. And yeah. Learning to say paraphilia is the first time I practiced this presentation in front of my mother was just the most awful experience of my life. To explain my motivations, I worked in supported living and residential care for about 10 years last year, and my area is challenging behaviour. And I'll go away from it for a couple of months and then I'll come straight back to it. Mainly people on the spectrum, past few years. And when I went to TISARD, I was adamant that the 2-year project that I have to do for a dissertation would be on challenging behaviour. Wasn't quite sure what area. I was thinking attitudes, kind of my area. And then I met this gentleman, Paul Cambridge. Have any of you read any of his work or met? He's an amazing gentleman. He's insane in the most brilliant of ways. He came and did a presentation on the sort of work he did, and I just went, yeah, sexually challenging behaviour. How can I possibly combine these two things? And yeah, for a year and a half, he guided me through doing a dissertation on this topic. So that's where I'm coming from. And I think it's a worthy topic, as worthy as any. And like I said, it's taboo. Money and death are the only British topics. British people don't like talking about it. And sex is in there. It's the top 3. So, I found this quote quite early on, and I did abbreviate the swearing because I got told that might get quite a few people's backs up. I had swearing on the second slide. But Tom Shakespeare, another funny character, if you read any of his books, I think it is people that work in this area have to just have such a sense of humour. But his book, the Sexual Politics of Disability, one of my favourites, definitely worth the read. And he raises, positive behavioural support is so important. There's things higher up on the agenda, things actually to do with daily living are really, really important. Your rights, your human rights, access to the benefits of work, incredibly important. So sex and sexuality kind of comes down the chain. But I think I'd argue that it's important to put it on the spectrum with everything, to support people as a whole. So when I started the project, I was looking at sort of the initial research that was already out there, and Paul Cambridge being quite high up there. Some lovely visual pictorial books for individuals to read through about personal care, sort of rights and risks. Michelle McCarthy's book, The 3 R's. I don't know if any of you have read that. Risks, Responsibilities and Rights. It's a fantastic training resource for supported living staff. Definitely worth the read. Wendy Lawson, who I really liked because her hair was crazy colours too. And Sarah Hendricks does public speaking on sexuality for people on the spectrum. And the Family Planning Association project, Just Ask, was a particularly good piece of work. So if you're interested, please have a look. And one of the the kind of negative outcomes of service, and I was seeing this as a care manager as well, is that we're so preoccupied with risk management that we can be quite protective of people and not actually allow them to experience. So I don't know about you, but the rubbish relationships that come out of kind of shape you and lead you onto better things. But if you're never allowed to kind of experience breaking up with someone. Yeah, so Sean Bad did a nice quote that I wanted to show you. I'm wishing I had a clicker now because I'm walking around the room as well.
Because I can sit there and...
No, it gives me an excuse to pace. So, here's a question for yourselves. Within your job roles, what sorts of sexual behaviours occur? What sort of things are you supporting?
You want an answer?
Yeah, I want answers. I'm going to tell you lots about myself in this presentation. You're going to have an intimate knowledge of me in the next 20 minutes. So.
Open masturbation.
Thank you.
Kind of in, yeah, I knew something once.
Never going to be appropriate on the bus. Yeah,
no, or sitting in the lounge with family, other members around and things like that. So, yeah, and that's males and females.
Yep. There are things that go beyond being sexually challenging and actually bridge into offending. And that's a whole other area of work. And that's not something I touched on at all, but there are behaviours like that. Masturbating in inappropriate areas, absolutely. It's an incredibly challenging thing to work with as well, to support people with. Okay. I hate this picture, I knew it was coming up. Lots of things, though, that were coming up in this research weren't actually challenging. When you put it into perspective, one of the examples I was given was about masturbating in your bedroom. And as the staff member was telling me about this, I was kind of going, I guess that isn't really challenging, because he always closes the door, and we do have to remind him to close the windows and the curtains, but actually it's not challenging. I want to move past this slide because I know the photos on it. So what I was trying to get across to staff was actually trying to think about challenging behaviour in the context of where it's happening, and is it actually a challenge? Are we actually putting that label on it unnecessarily? Is it just, this is the person's home and they're expressing themselves? So my kind of answer to that was, people were coming up with this and labelling it as challenging because of their own belief sets or their own knowledge. I promise this will all come to the point very soon. So here's a little bit about me. I told you you'd learn about me. Self-identity and how I perceive the world comes from all the things I've experienced. People I know. And did I skip to that? The friends and the family, the matriarch setup, strong women, grandmothers on there, the boss. My friend William, who's in the top middle, who has set me up with every person that I've ever dated. Did you not? My first love has hooked me up with every person I've dated ever since. A lot of critiques, that guy. It takes a lot of responsibility for this. But these people, my network of support, my circle of support, probably rings a bit truer when we start getting into our job roles. The managers I've worked with, who've shaped which area of care I've worked in, kept pulling me back to challenging behaviour. These things shaped my professional self. This was the point I promised I was getting to. My academic self, so ending up in a room full of Cambridge going, okay, 2 years on this project. My relationships, my personality, who doesn't actually like speaking in front of people, this is a weird place to be. My interest in social life, and unsurprisingly, my sexual relationships, my sexual health, and my sexual life. Okay, so, what sort of things make you, you? And what sort of things support our, the service user word. So who is it that's supporting our guys with their sexuality? Where does that responsibility lie? And I do put this back to you because this was something that kept coming up in this study. Who is it that takes responsibility for supporting individuals with their sexual health, their sexual identity, their sexual autonomy? What do you guys think?
Well, it is us, but the experience that I had was met with an out-and-out refusal to accept that there was any sexualised behaviour when it was very clear that there was. And for me, as a manager, it was very difficult to broach that subject. My staff had come to me and were upset about various things that were happening, and I then had to go and speak to my seniors.
Did you have a parental conversation as well?
And parental conversation, and I have to say that was more difficult because that's where the absolute denial came from. And you know, I had to have a long discussion about how, you know, it wasn't something to be ashamed of, and that actually, you know, if this is happening, then we need to look at how we make that safe for everybody.
I think talking to parents about their kids' sexuality has only been more difficult than doing palliative care support plans for people. I think those are the only two things that you truly sit there and go, I don't even know how to bring up this topic with you, but we need to discuss it because it translates between when he's visiting you at home and when he's living in service. We all need to be on the same team. I think what I was finding in this research was actually there's a lot of buck passing. So managers would see the direct support workers as being the responsible person. I don't know about you, but in this industry you don't particularly pay well or train well. How are you expecting people on the front line to know the best practice?
Sorry. The advent of the Mental Capacity Act has fueled a lot of those concerns.
Absolutely. And I think, like right at the start, when we talk about things that we're uncomfortable about as a nation, as a sweeping statement here, that death, sex and money, we just don't like talking about it, and it can be really hard to put people at the centre and get everybody on the same page. And if you're not comfortable talking about sex, if you find it really embarrassing and you go red and you can't, you're more comfortable discussing finances or care planning, then it's really hard to mediate those conversations between all the invested parties. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not comfortable talking about my sexuality with my mum. Or I never was. That conversation with her as a teenager, that was just awful. And yet, because people are in services, there's this just assumption sometimes that you're just going to have this open dialogue and everyone's going to be on the same page. I don't think it's an easy answer at all, and I will show you the findings from the research, I promise, soon. So, there was a lot of buck passing between, is it managers, is it outside services, is it social workers, is it care managers, is it parents? Only one example of it being parents. That's quite interesting. So, you know PBS. Just in case you're not aware, PBS is about supporting the whole person with all aspects, including sexuality. And O'Brien, this was the angle I was coming from, was quality of life domains, person at the centre, PBS support. So, the project has so far taken 2.5 years, and I hope next Monday is over. There were 7 staff interviews regarding 4 consenting adults, and your point about consent. Oh, the logistical nightmares when you start talking about people with profound disabilities and their sexuality and ethical considerations. I think the total in the end was 7 revisions on ethical approval. I was on first name terms with the ethical officer at Izzard because there was just so many things to jump through, and in the end we had to moderate the study so much. It was quite unrecognisable from the start, because actually the individuals who would probably have got a lot more out of it, the kind of service users who were displaying the behaviours that you really need to learn about, they couldn't give informed consent, so they were kind of cut out of this study, which felt, it still doesn't sit comfortably with me. There's got to be better ways of going to ethical consent. So it revolved around 4 service users who all gave informed consent and 7 of their staff. In all but 1 service, there was just 1 service working person, so we interviewed key workers and team leaders to get that kind of management input as well. For 1 service user, we had 2 providers, so we only interviewed the key worker for that group. We did staff questionnaires. This was the added bit for the second submission. And I had to add 72% response rate because that was just hell. Please fill it in. And then I looked at policy and procedure because I wanted to look at, is there strong company guidance on this? Is there clear information that direct staff can work on to know exactly what they're expected to do, who they should go to if there's a problem, and see whether there was support across the board and good direct practice? So we started with looking at what sexual autonomy was. So I was talking to staff about, are individuals expressing themselves, or do they have any choice? Do they have no choice? So kind of a little bit of a visual to try and help people break down sexual autonomy. And we looked at defining, looked at definitions, so what exactly is sexually challenging behaviour? And of course, always start with Emerson. It's a good solid foundation for any definition, because behaviours can be challenging in different contexts, in different situations. So it's about working out, like I said, like masturbating on the bus, that's a challenging behaviour, that's going to limit your access to the community, it's not an appropriate behaviour. But your bedroom, that's fine. So how do we skill support to get people knowing acceptable boundaries and places to go? Lockhart had quite a solid foundation specifically for sexually challenging behaviour. So it's the nature of the behaviour that makes it challenging, where it occurs, but also an acknowledgement that it can be self-directed or others. It's not just necessarily masturbating on the bus, and can include non-consensual. And that then bridged on sort of sexual offending as well. So hopefully, possibly, this is a big long definition that I came up with, pulling from all the best bits of everybody. I won't read it all out. If you are interested, I'm happy to send it on, but it's quite a mouthful, and I know lunch is coming up soon. So fingers crossed. That would be amazing. And here are the results. 50% of the staff I interviewed knew that their company had a policy on sexuality. Half of the staff even knew of the existence of any kind of guidance in their company on how to work with people around their sexuality, not just sexually challenging behaviour, but supporting sexuality positively. Of those that knew where it was, most knew where to find it, but some didn't. Most staff felt comfortable raising the topic of sexuality, but 3/4 didn't feel sufficiently trained. There is actually a training course within this company, and most didn't even know it existed. And lots of staff in the interview were telling me, oh, it'd be great if I could go on training on this and actually know what I'm expected to do and how I can help my service user. That's exactly what I want. They're asking me, I'm going, I don't. I know of the existence, please go to your line manager, please go and talk to them about this. And most had a contact for advice, but that was usually the team leader or their line manager. So line managers were saying to me, I'd go to my boss. So it was just, going back to the quote from the start, didn't feel that they knew anything about sexuality. The interviews came up with two main themes. So anyone who's had the joy of doing thematic analysis on the Vivo, we broke it down into two main things, which was the concerns of the issues, and lots of that was around public, family members. What will they think if they see it? What will people think of me as a staff member if this person I'm supporting is doing that? There was a sort of conduct liability, that what the person did reflected on the staff member and the organisation that they were supported by. So lots of people were quite risk averse. So we'll teach the person not to do that. Public versus private, so lots of staff picking up on that. Actually, it might be appropriate in one place, but not in another. And how do I support that? But they weren't confident. And they weren't confident on where they might find the responsibility for that decision. And strategies and sort of managing concerns. They were talking about meetings, lots and lots of meetings, key worker meetings, team meetings, but no kind of, this is the person who leads on it, this is who I'd go to, who knows about this topic. So yeah, the interviews were quite helpful at shaping the questionnaire. And I think the biggest bit for me was when we broke down the company policy. There's a fantastic best practice guidance by the Family Planning Association, tells you lots of things that should be in a good sexuality policy, 52 to be exact. And what I was finding was that there wasn't really an introduction in this company policy. It didn't tell you what the purpose of the policy was and what you were going to find from it. The focus was very much on pornography, how to support people and what staff's responsibilities. Basically, they weren't allowed to. They could direct to a shop, but you couldn't be involved in the transaction. And that was a good page. That was a whole page of this policy. There was nothing about transgender support, nothing about anything other than heterosexuality. So all these features that should be in a good policy were missing. 48% it had compliance with about half what should be in there. So I think what I was drawing as a conclusion from that was staff didn't feel confident, but they didn't actually have a guiding document to tell them what to do in a variety of situations unless they were asked by form. That they were well instructed. So the suggestions from the study were to look at formal and informal training, so how practice leadership would work on the floor, so how direct team leaders can support their staff to know their rights and responsibilities. Look at sexuality within PBS, quality of life. So it is a part of people's life and building up people's confidence, but also acknowledging that for some staff this was just too difficult of an area to support, and it's working within your own capabilities. So if you don't feel comfortable doing this, who can you talk to that will? I mean, I've had direct experience of that, where you have to go and do condom conversation with people. And I thought this was a fallacy. You've all heard the banana story? Mm-hmm. It's not a fallacy. I sat in a house meeting But the guys went to me, so where's the banana? What are you talking about? Well, you know, you have to put the condom on the banana. When you work with people on the spectrum who have very literal thinking, and that's the way they've been taught at school, I'm going, Jesus, please tell me that with your girlfriend you're not using a banana. It's like, but that's what I got told. How are you not a parent yet? And going back to step one, but I'm quite comfortable with that conversation, but I had a row of staff who were like, no, I just don't want to make a fool of myself. I don't want to upset the parents. I don't want to overstep my role. I don't want to say something I shouldn't. So, yeah, it's the organisational responsibility to make sure people are confident and know what they're expected to do. Focus on sexual autonomy. So, looking at risk. People with learning disability are really vulnerable. You know, I was looking at some work by USLA that children in residential care with learning disability are 4 times more likely to be sexually abused than neurotypical children in other residential settings. That's just unacceptable. But it kind of feels like just telling people to say no isn't really working as a method. Just telling people, just say no. Just don't. We're not upskilling people to actually understand their rights and responsibilities or to recognise vulnerable situations. So, yes, sorry, that's a rant off of the slides. I'll go back, otherwise I'll delay lunch. The other recommendation was about actually reviewing this company policy, making sure that it was clear to everybody and actually disseminated so people knew that it existed. It's helpful if you've got a policy for people to know that it's there. And also to have someone, and this was a recommendation from Family Planning Associations, that you have someone within an organisation who keeps up on best practice, who's kind of the link person, could tell people that there are community teams you can go to for psychological support, just to be kind of that go-to person. Thought I'd end on a joke.